belong, you belong, you belong, you belong to the Merry Marvel Marching Society.
Spiderverse. I went to go see Spider-Man Across the Spiderverse on Sunday, and I gotta say, it was pretty good. It was pretty damn good. The story was solid, it had some really funny moments, the characters had compelling motivations, and the art was just gorgeous, man. I loved it. But I keep seeing tweets like this, or even this. And I gotta say, I agree that the movie was really good. It's better than anything else Marvel's put out this year.
Look at me. I'm such a dick.
But I feel like the internet's overhyping this movie. Just a little bit. I'm not saying the movie was bad. It's still really fucking good. It's just not as good as the internet is saying it is. The movie definitely had some issues, and some of them weren't super minor in my opinion. And I'm not being a hater here either. I loved a lot of things about the movie. The Spider-Men were amazing. It was so cool seeing all these different incarnations of Spider-Man coexist with all of them having distinguishing characteristics. The animation, as I mentioned earlier, was incredible. I particularly loved these scenes where Gwen was talking to her father. The villain was fantastic. I am a sucker for characters being reworked and given better motivations. And let's be honest with ourselves, most of the writers from the 70s, 80s, 90s, they were high. They were high all the time, but they managed to rework the Spot and they made him intimidating. He went from a villain of the week to an actual menace. But enough of the good. There's a lot of good in this movie and I can't recommend it enough. You guys should always go watch it and get your own opinion about it. Let's talk about the bad now. So I ran into this problem a lot with the movie, and I think it was most evident with Hobie Brown's introduction, Spider-Punk.
Hi, my name's Hobie Brown.
I honestly could not understand half of the things he was saying during that intro, and for a while, I thought it was just because he was British, right? He had an accent. I thought my little American brain couldn't compute, right? But I asked my friend, he's not British, of course, but maybe, he understood him better, and he also had no idea what he was saying. And then I found out that a part of this actual intro had been released online as a preview of the movie, right? And it sounded perfectly fine with my headphones on. So I think they just didn't realize how loud movie speakers are, especially since the guy was, rocking his guitar while he was being introed. So I love the introduction to Gwen's world. I liked how it showed the parallels between her and Miles. I liked the colors of it, as I already mentioned earlier. It's genuinely just another rehash of the Spider-Man story. Get bitten by a spider, get superpowers, a loved one dies, and after that, they really become Spider-Man. But the one thing I absolutely hated was Captain Stacy. I thought initially he was a pretty cool character. I thought that it was a pretty cool idea that he was unknowingly hunting the person that he loved the most. Then he kind of just fell off for me, and the main reason for this is when he tries to arrest Gwen. I'm sorry, that made him completely uncompelling in my eyes. Your daughter comes to you hat in hand. She tells you that she never killed her best friend, that you've been chasing her for absolutely no reason, and instead of admitting you were wrong, you just arrest her? Afterwards, I just stopped caring about Captain Stacy. I liked how they made up towards the end, but that was mostly just because of the animation. I no longer gave a shit about Captain Stacy. Maybe it's just me, but I feel like the music was a big downgrade from the original Spider-Verse. I didn't hear any songs that kind of hit me the same way that Sunflower did.
Then you're left in the dust, unless I stuck by you. You're a sunflower.
I remember walking out of theaters and just kind of humming Sunflower, and for this one, I can't remember any song from it actually. I don't think a single song was close to Sunflower, and I feel like that was a problem. I might have to re-listen to the soundtrack, but the fact that I have to re-listen to it kind of shows me that they're not on the same level. My biggest problem with this film is what I would call the Peter Parker problem. Let's just talk about the Spider Society for a second. The Spider Society is a bunch of Spider-Men working together as a sort of multiversal police force. They go around, they fix anomalies, and they make sure that canon events happen. But I cannot for a single second believe that any decent Spider person would be okay with this, especially not Peter Parker. I can't see a single Peter Parker being okay with somebody dying. That's just not what he does. And I want to give you guys examples, but I'm not going to go into the comics because the comics are a mess, and I don't want to be told that Peter Parker from Earth 2169 actually murdered 75,000 people or something, right? There's probably a Peter Parker out there that's just an absolute asshole. We're going to be talking about a similar medium as Spider-Verse. We're going to be talking about the live-action Spider-Man movies. Let's just talk about those Spider-Men. Let's see if they would even fit in here. How about Tom Holland, right? Well, the main conflict in his last movie was him not wanting to send back villains to their timeline so that they could die. He got into a fight with Doctor Strange over this, he lost his aunt over this, and he still tried to save most of them. And that's just Tom, right? That's the MCU, it's all goody cookie cutter. What about the original Spider-Man movies? Let's talk about Tobey Maguire. Well, you know, he was forced to choose between saving a SkyTrain full of children and Mary Jane. And his decision was, I'm going to save both. And he did. And I don't see any timeline where Tobey just says, okay, I'll let you die, without him having the symbiote suit on. The only one that I could see kind of being okay with this would be Andrew Garfield, but only after Gwen's death. As he says in No Way Home, he stopped pulling his punches, right? And I think that would probably indicate that he'd be okay with people dying. And I think that's my main problem with this. The only Peter Parkers that I could see being okay with this are Peter Parkers that are at their lowest. Peter Parkers that just lost their loved ones. And I don't think that's a good representation of most Peter Parkers. Why would Peter B. Parker be okay with this? Why would he be okay with everybody dying? He has his daughter, he has his wife. It just doesn't make sense, especially after the last movie where he was so willing to just sacrifice his life to save an entire dimension. It was, you know, trying to run away from his problems, but he was still willing to do that. And now he's just letting people die because somebody tells him that it has to happen. Finally, the movie for me just felt incomplete. And that's by design, right? It's part 1 of 2. But this cheapened the movie more than I thought it would. I originally went in with the expectation it would have a decent ending similar to the original Spider-Verse, but it would leave the door open for expansion further down the line, right? And that might just be my mistake there. It's like a building, right? Spider-Verse 1 built the first story. They put a bunch of decorations, they put a couch in there, they put a TV. It's perfect. Across the Spider-Verse Part 1 kind of built half of the second story, and they put a window in there and like a couch, and then they just kind of left it. And the hope is that, you know, they'll finish that second story with Part 2. But if there's one thing I've learned from video games, it's that you shouldn't buy a video game with the expectation that it'll get better down the line. You should buy it as is. And I don't think this movie gave me the full experience that it could have. If I had known beforehand that this is the way the movie was going to end, I don't think I would have actually watched it, at least not immediately. I would have probably waited until Spider-Verse 2 came out, and then I would have been able to get the full experience by watching both movies side by side. And at the end of the day, this is all subjective. There is no objectively good movie. There can't be an objectively good movie. Art is just based off opinions. If something doesn't sit well with you, then you don't like it. You can't objectively be wrong, right? It's all about your emotions. That being said, this movie is still really fucking good. I don't think Marvel's put out anything better in the past year than this, especially not Ant-Man. But I didn't like the movie as it stands better than the original. Although, it is a part 1, so maybe when part 2 comes out, everything will suddenly click for me, and I'll just love both halves of the movie. And I guess I'll just have to wait until then. I'm probably not gonna watch the movie again until part 2 comes out, so maybe my opinion will change by then, but for now, could be better, but it's still fucking good. Maybe if there was a book, I'd like it more. I don't know. Anyways, thank you guys for watching, and please don't hurt my feelings in the comments.